What if the space that people talk about, like the DMT space, what if that actually is more reality than reality? I think that our brain naturally cuts out things it considers not necessary.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier about the RAC. Your mind using that filter decides what information it shows you.
What if what people are seeing is so unfiltered that they're basically in the white room of the Matrix?
Like you said, people that have been abusing it get kicked out. It sounds more like transcendental traveling.
So what is it you're seeing is just a flash of images that you're able to hold on to, but you still come back and you can't explain it. Like you come back saying something like, impossible geometry. So what's that mean?
I'm telling you, man.
You brought the whole DMT thing to me, which we've been talking about that off and on for a while. But you had brought up an interesting perspective that I really enjoyed, and we started to get into it a little bit more as to
I feel like I should have my phone on me just so I can see exactly what I wrote you, but it was something to the effect of thinking about how our brains process the information and actually create it to tell us the story about the world around us, as opposed to just seeing everything like through a camera lens. What if the space that people talk about, like the DMT space that everyone seems to experience congruently throughout their experiences, what if that actually is more reality than reality? And I was thinking that because the image that we get of the world around us, it's brought in from our five senses and maybe more, and then it's compiled to make something that's usable for everyday life. That's the kind of the way I think of it.
and I would extend the idea of everyday life to agree with you on that, to maintain life, survival of the meat suit. Well, it's an instinctive action because it has to preserve itself. So, like you said, for every day, and it's like, yeah, because every day I want to stay alive.
Well, think about that too. I mean, as cool as it would be to see every kind of frequency, wouldn't that be really distracting at times? And maybe there's a way that we're supposed to be able to turn it on through some type of meditation, or I guess my suggestion was that, hey, there's this weird chemical that's actually already produced in our body. And what about its effects? And what's it really doing? Is it showing us something that's a hallucination that's created in our brain, but everything's created in our brain. So
In a sense,
who's to say like, okay, this reality is more real than, and most people that come back from that experience will actually say it feels more real than this reality. But it's experiencing life in extra dimensions. It's extra dimensional, which I don't even understand, or it's something you can only, it's ineffable. And everybody says the same thing. I can recall the experience and how glorious it was. But beyond that, it loses any ability. It's ineffable. It loses any ability to explain it away. Like, how do you explain something with a level of dimension that we're not even aware of? And that kind of really, like, that's where my mind went with it. It's who's to say that that isn't the real picture of what's going on around us, and what we're seeing is so filtered and cloistered and memorized. Like I was saying earlier in that conversation, right? How when you walk, like your brain is crazy, and if you don't, I was saying, if you don't have enough information sometimes to make a full picture visually, your brain will actually kind of fill in the gaps, and the only thing it has to pull from is it's filtering through your past memories, trying to find something something that's familiar. It's looking for a pattern of sort. And whatever it pulls that looks closest to whatever you're viewing, because you don't have enough information, it's going to fill in the blank. So people, even without the use of any kind of drugs, will walk into a dark room and suddenly, like, they'll feel like somebody just walked up next to them because they just see a dark shadow and their brain just automatically makes it look like something it's familiar with, like another human. And then it catches you by surprise, and then you realize it's a code rack. I think it's happened to everybody, right?
Right. But I mean, you were expressing more so that with DMT in our system, none of that really matters because it's the filters, I think is how we were kind of putting it together, more or less gets turned off or buffered somehow, lessened maybe. Or it might completely modify how the data is either registered or perceived by our brain. And the point I think you're making more so is that if that filter is turned off, what we're then ingesting, what our brain is representing to us as far as sight and sound and feel, that's touch, emotion, everything, is the actuality. But with those filters on, we see this construct. It's almost like being in a VR suit in a sense. So it's removing us from that suit. Because I've made that point before with us being a consciousness that's within the meat suit, the physical human body. What if that consciousness is in that realm that DMT shows us? And that's really what perception is. Sight, sound, touch, everything, the way our consciousness is supposed to ingest this information, not the brain of the meat suit.
I don't think our equipment is even built to see most of these things.
Well,
But I do think, and this is just my personal opinion, I do think like the human eye is capable of seeing things that are considered to be out of human visual range. I think, and this is just me saying this, there's no science to back this up. I think that our brain naturally cuts out things it considers not necessary. But maybe the human eye can perceive certain infrared colors.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier about the RAC. The RAC being programmable in a sense that your mind using that filter decides what information it shows you. So, because we took it further is if all you see is negative, if that's all that you program into your brain, it's going to get you more of that. So there's all these other things that are constantly around us, whether on a different spectrum or frequency, be it light, energy, anything of that nature, just something else that's layered on top of this that we're not
picking up
perceiving
at all. Right. Even though our senses are receiving it, we're not even, it's like being able to, you ever been in a crowded restaurant and you can listen in on like a certain conversation?
Of course.
And you can quite literally kind of make everything else background noise. It's really weird that you can do that.
I mean, you can focus your senses, but that's what I'm saying is the senses are capable of being able to do all that. It's more so the filtering, at least my belief, so the RAC as an example, the brain deciphering, but perhaps, I was making a point of earlier when we were talking that maybe our consciousness within the meat suit aspect can't truly comprehend that much sensory load. So what if there always has to be a filter, which could be the RAC, and it's either programmable or not, meaning that it either runs its own set algorithms, choices, but you controlling the meat suit can reprogram that information. And even with that in mind, like I was making point of earlier, is all these things, options, choices, physical objects that we would say all of these are perceivable, but your brain chooses, that section of the filters chooses to isolate and remove other things so that your focus becomes that object.
You're saying that's kind of like the part of your brain that allows suggestive reasoning, like there's like a little input that you can put in there that gives you a different result.
The
Like
RAC, well,
you can
yeah.
say, I'm only going to have good things happen to me today, and it's like this magic act because you're telling your brain, okay, we're only going to be receiving good things today.
Well, yeah, because so my bigger point with that is, so all of these things are always around us, but now our our filter choosing the data or the representation of the data to point us in a different direction or a said direction, whichever, as we would program it, that becomes the thing that all of these options and choices and objects are around you. It's now saying it's almost like the choose your own adventure book. So as you choose different things, it changes the outcomes. You swap all the different pages and whatnot. If you do this, go to page 27. You do this, go to page 73. Same thing in life is, well, I see this object over here, which could be a person or a car or a newspaper, or I could see this object over here, which is maybe somebody's phone or a billboard, or so there's all of these different inputs around us. Our filter then chooses which ones, and that creates the path that either takes us to that happiness or that misery or
Right, and I would say that's your brain looking for usefulness within the objects around you. And when you look at something, like I'm not seeing, like my brain doesn't have a process every bit of that plant to know what it is, right? Because it sees enough of it, and then I'm kind of getting a picture from past experience. I'm getting a pre-filled image already of what this type of plant is because I've seen them before. So it's like your brain is automatically going to make these connections to what's useful in your life. You look at a glass, like your hand knows the shape to hold that glass and to receive its contents. Like you find usefulness in the objects around you. And where I was starting to go with that is the DMT experience, the place that you end up in. You're surrounded by objects that don't need usefulness because they are just what they are. And I think that's where you reach this place that's it's beyond your comprehension, because what you're experiencing is, it can only be experienced, I think, by the mind without the limits of the brain.
the consciousness.
It People say, I don't know whether you go anywhere, but I think possibly what happens, maybe it forces an out of body experience, maybe it forces an inner body experience, but whatever it is, I think the brain tissue, it's too sluggish to process. Like you said, you're talking about colors that the mind can't fathom, that the brain can't fathom, because we've never seen them before, because it's beyond
Well,
our
not that we've
ability.
never seen them before. Our brain hasn't been able to process that data, or it's filtered it out to that degree.
Right.
But yeah, so it's not that it can't. It's not. And yeah, that unknowing kind of geeks the system. I get that. Okay.
What happens to your brain if you step into a sixth dimension?
Well, right, because it's like saying if you were using MS DOS and now trying to work within iOS or something, while they're similar in structure and ability, doesn't mean that they're compatible. If you have as you're saying, the brain being built of and habituated to 3 and 4 dimensions, all of its inputs that it would be ingesting data wise would be built within that structure of 3 and 4 dimension. It either can't process, like physically handle it in a sense. Again, going like MS DOS trying to talk to a Mac, like that shit ain't gonna happen. It wants to, it can communicate, it just nothing actually gets the back and forth. Yeah, I mean, what if the fifth and sixth dimension, or any dimension outside of three and four, or I guess below, because one and two, if our brain is built for and habituated in that, then yeah, I mean, whether it can comprehend it or not knowing it, it also can't comprehend it.
Oh, you know what I just thought? What if what people are seeing is so unfiltered that they're basically in the white room of the Matrix, the training, right?
What? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm trying to
They're in the
follow
training
your,
room of the Matrix, but they're seeing the machinery behind it.
like, reading the Matrix. The
No, 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 no. Like, well, what's viewed? It's like what do they call it? Impossible geometry. That it's so beautiful and colorful, and it's filled with colors that you can't even describe because they don't exist here. Like this is the DMT state that people, the space that people end up in, right? Impossible geometry.
okay.
Like we wouldn't know how to create it, but it's so perfect and so beautiful and constantly moving. It's almost like you're seeing behind the curtain. Are you seeing the program behind the curtain of reality? Just a theory.
I would think of it more as it being the skeleton, and as we add filters, that takes more shape. So we're seeing it for a raw nature, as if it was the skeleton per se, and not physical, but just the base to any construct, the core of any structure or object, being now an actual dimension, but still.
Foundation, maybe the foundation, like you're layering things on top of it. That's what I'm thinking is foundational, but foundational about something that's I don't want to say it's not connected to time, but
Well,
not
but
so
think
much
about
connected
this.
to
But
matter at
yeah, but think
all.
about this: the time aspect. If it's above or outside of three and four dimensions, time and space, well, then it wouldn't have it. The fourth dimension would have it. So fifth or sixth dimension would be without that, because that's not what that dimension is. That's the dimension is time here.
Or
So
like without, yeah, because I think there's still a time still elapses within that space. Because then otherwise there wouldn't be knowledge of. I mean, you've heard of the people getting kicked out from abusing the DMT space.
yeah, I've heard, yeah, but doesn't mean it's true or not. I just, yeah.
Again, this is something that's congruent among several different stories that I've heard.
I think it lays point to that it is a true realm, and utilizing DMT removes, I guess, almost the human nature of our experience, that we see that truer form, which could be fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth dimension, or who knows, just it's outside of 3 and 4D.
When I don't think it can even be viewed. That's what my suggestion is. I don't think it can even be viewed within the body per se. I think it requires you to kind of like, periscope your little spirit out a
Like
little bit.
astral project in a sense.
I think the brain just slows it down. I think even just the slowness of the vibration of the brain, it can't keep up. Back to the computer lingo. It's like, but you're using like an old 1985 Windows computer, and you're trying to run, you know, like even brand new Linux on it. And it's like, oh no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Just it's an impossibility. We're running on MS DOS, trying to understand the secrets of the universe. It's just I don't think the brain can process it.
Yeah. I get that point. But I mean, I was, because what I was saying was to, I mean, just trying to have the understanding. So literally not being able to comprehend anything outside of 3 and 4D, because sensory wise, it can't do it. But then the extension of because you've never known it, are unaware of it because filters, whatever it may be, but not knowing what it is, you can't comprehend it. It's ineffable. It's something new to you that I don't know what it was.
It's
So
not something you can put into words. It'd be like the first time you see a portal open in front of you.
so then yeah, maybe that's the thing, is that because the brain won't let you see it, then maybe DMT just turns the switch off. Think of it like this: serotonin modifies how receptors work. It's literally the sodium barrier. As you get, the different electrical pulses going through, and getting synapses to fire, like that whole spiel. But serotonin does that. Well, what if DMT also does that? It turns certain barriers on and off, which either allows for the senses to perceive more data, or it cuts the filter so that the sensors that are perceiving that data, the brain can now see it as that.
I think there is a correlation between serotonin and DMT, though. I think they're close to each other structurally,
I have
and the
no
one
idea.
becomes the other.
But so that to me begs this question, though. If the DMT is turning off that filter or allowing certain senses to be utilized, why is it that we're in a whole other realm? And like you said, people that have been abusing it get kicked out. It sounds more like transcendental traveling, where your consciousness literally goes to that dimension or place.
Without the aid of your body.
What has nothing to do with, like, you literally just have a gateway there. So whether that's astral projecting in a sense, or you physically just disconnect certain parts of the body, that now your consciousness is what's perceiving and not the body that's perceiving.
That would make sense. So you're not actually taking in any information from your senses at that point? Like bypasses all of them, or
Right. So then it's just your straight consciousness that's actually ingesting. And because you, being the consciousness inside the meat suit, perceives what the meat suit gives you, like a VR video game, when you step outside of that video game, you now have just you and what you perceive. Well, you wouldn't be inside the video game anymore. You took the VR suit off.
so you'd be in the waiting room outside the video
Or in a
game?
Pizza Hut with the video game. I don't know.
So what is that space, though? No, I mean, is that what you're saying? It's just
Well, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying with the DMT aspect to it. Is it sounds as if, so not so much traveling to that realm, but just existing within that realm that is coexisting with this construct. Us in the meat suits just don't perceive it.
right. You haven't gone anywhere. It's literally you're perceiving a different dimension.
Yeah, you're still in the same spot. You're just in a different place.
But are you perceiving it with your brain?
I would be inclined to think it's your consciousness that's interacting with it.
Yeah, because that's my question. I'm just like, I'm not. You really can't bring much back. So what is it you're seeing is just a flash of images that you're able to hold on to, but you still come back and you can't explain it. Like you come back saying something like, impossible geometry. So what's that mean? And that makes me wonder, okay, well, what's impossible geometry? Because then I think, well, isn't that the stuff that like I kind of been studying on the side for all these years about, the golden ratio and what's the circles within circles that have appeared everywhere. The flower of life has popped up in like
Fibonacci sequence, or
Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah, or is that part of the golden ratio? I always forget. I'm just
I can't remember if that is or not, but that makes me think, maybe it's you start playing with that flower of life, and then you make it bigger, and then I forget what it's called when it's bigger, but that's where you can by connecting all the I think the cross points, depending on which pathways you take, you can basically draw out all of the Pythagorean shapes, the solids.
Yeah.
You can draw out all the solids. You can draw like even the really complex ones, all the way up to like the Merkaba, which naturally come out within that. It's really quite amazing, and it's all made with interlinking bubbles that cross to create like a vesica Pisces in between. Like they all have to cross like that. But that basically that's cellular division. It looks exactly like that. Everything in nature actually follows that shape.
Well, yeah, and we were talking about the mycelial network and how bronchioles and root systems and brain cells
trees
and
they're all similar.
they all have that same relative structure and shape
But
and
now they're
style
taking
of networking.
pictures of space, and they look just like our neural networks within our brain. Like fascinating. Like right, you could swap the pictures; they look the same. Fascinating. What's that tell you?
Well,
The macrocosm is the microcosm.
and think about
They're
the
one and the same.
Men in Black, where there's an entire town inside of a locker. But
Yeah.
think of that to the nth degree. I mean, you're talking about if our existence or universe as that, like you just expressed, very similar looking to neural pathway. What if it really is us in this construct, our universe, all of that within that neural network of another entity that too also has all in, you know what I mean? So it goes layer upon layer upon layers.
That's what the experiment is. That's what I think.
But then we literally all would be one.
Yeah, we are.
Just within, layers and layers down.
When I say we, God, alone, all by himself, got bored. So he created everything so he could experience it for himself. Fascinating. Yeah, but I believe that. I believe we're all one.
Yeah, I would have to say I'm really starting to lean towards the idea that DMT severs the human body from the consciousness or stops the.
That actually makes perfect sense when you think about when your body always uses it, which is right at the moment of death.
It's sleep cycle.
So does that not say, okay, you're in the waiting room? Maybe that's what it is. It's just boom, you're in the waiting room.
Well, I think that was one of the
step through, but that's just where you end up.
I think that was a hypothesis, was the reason why our brains seem to express such a quantity of DMT as we're crossing over is to make the crossover that much easier. So,
well, like you said, does it just
help you? So whether it's literally severing or just removing the pathway of data going through your body, it's basically just taking an offshoot because it's got a cheater and it bloop skips all those filters and just goes straight to you as the consciousness. So you're still within the meat suit, but you're no longer ingesting data that's been filtered and processed by this program.
Or you're not listening to any of it. You're somewhere else entirely. The body's still here, but
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. So whether it's a physical sever, astral projecting,
right? Because DMT can be experienced. What's the word again? Even if it's produced within your own body, it can be experienced while you're alive, sometimes in a dream state, sometimes in deep meditation, you know, and you can experience that, not the same thing, but you can experience something similar that gives rise to these, these flighty feelings, these feelings like you're in that better place for a moment. And for that one moment, you realize you are everything. Everything was within you, everything without. There's no such thing. It's all you. Everything is you. Malkovich. Everything's
Yeah.
you, and you see it for that, even if it's a brief moment. Because they say, even if you smoke it, you maybe get like 3 minutes of that euphoric state, and then you start coming back down to reality again. It doesn't last really long.
Well, right, but
The whole thing, maybe 15 minutes, but
the thing is, when you're on the other side, time is no longer the same perception.
it's not the same perception.
So that's why I'm like severing of some sort, that it is a realm that is here at the same exact time. We brought it up. I always do it, the all things everywhere all at once, where all things, all existences, all parallel dimensions, universes, everything is all simultaneous, has happened, will happen, is happening. It all is. DMT severs that 3 and 4 dimension that then allows for not even just perception of, but existence within 5th, 6th, 7th, etc. dimension.
I get the feeling, though, that you're in a place that's kind of unchangeable when you go there.
Well, right, but when you're here in this construct, it's unchangeable. There's always rules.
Well, no, there's definitely change.
There's always change.
The second law of thermodynamics, that's still
But
in
that's
play.
just an expression of, it still has to be that. Everything has rules.
Because to have, in a dualistic existence, to have life, you must also have death, right?
Well, right, but that's why I always said that's the dichotomy of what the human existence is. Difference.
But things don't run by those rules.
Well, of course not. It's a different dimension. It's got different rules for that construct.
That dimension is run by those, they call them machine elves.
Yeah,
Or
something
like
that.
McKenna would call them the multicolored, self-bouncing basketballs.
Like little gestures of sorts, or
They crowd around you from every seemingly invisible locations just out of nowhere. And they're just so happy to see you. And they want to tell you things. It's crazy, bro.
kind of freaky.
It is kind of freaky.
I don't know if I'd be into what they got to tell me.
But it's more than natural, too. I mean, think about it. Your own body produces that. So what is it showing you? Because it's not just for easing the pain of death. Because I don't think it severs. I think if you're in that state to get a DMT shot naturally, because you're about to pass on, I think the golden cord has already been severed. And the DMT just makes you go boop and poke your head out.
Well, and that's what I was saying more so in that regard, is it is for the transition. It's for letting go of this realm. It's so that your consciousness can have a clean break from 3 and 4D. So it's not so much that it eases it, it actually helps it happen.
Causes
Perhaps.
causes it.
Yeah, you at home, if you enjoyed any part of this conversation, have your own opinion and want to share a thought of something that we didn't have a counterpoint, by all means, hit us in the comments. I mean, that's what we love doing that. And yeah, you can go ahead.
I gotta have to just.
He's got to get his cuppage.
Yeah,
Cup. That was coming. As well, stick around for the end because we got rolling credits with lots of bloopers. They're hilarious. You should like them. And within the rolling credits, if your name's not in there and you want it to be in there, hit us in the comments.
Let us know. We'll put you in there, and it'll be, you'll be right in there. No, I'm not going to do that again.
But yeah, as well as we appreciate you, we love you, we thank you for stopping by, and be good to yourself, good to everything else.
Much love.
Peace.
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 That was a good one.
Yeah.
All right. We out. What did you just do?
Leaned into the elbow too hard. Fucking cracked the corner. It's all right. Just makes it more comfy. Clap. 1, 2, 3.
All right.
Oh, you put ice?
I did. Because it's the cheaper stuff.
It's still silver. It's still good. You're gonna talk shit on my tequila and not toast me? You non-cheersing bastard.
I thought you were going to say something.
Then I thought you were gonna say something.
No, it looked like you were ready to say something, and I was just going to take a sip. Why would I be saying something?
That's kind of what we do here.
While I'm sitting like this? So I'm arguing with myself all this time.
Oh, that's a given. Duh.
You ever stick a Nintendo game in and it doesn't go all the way in? You push it down, you get that...
In a sense, right? You cannot compute.
And then what do you do, right? You take it out, put
Well,
your shirt
yeah,
over.
so... What do you don't move the arm, just move the head. That's all. There you go.
Right. All right. It was Bigfoot real?
DMT world, maybe. Who knows? But I think that goes into that same question of...
I think Bigfoot's an alien. Or extra dimensional. Comes through portals, disappears.
But so I think that's a good spot to stop, because then we can come back to that next time, because I've made that same relative correlation as far as the stuff going on at like Skinwalker Ranch and them talking about portals, how there's these different beings or species that have been witnessed. And a whole
George
bunch
Lucas
of
been trying to
things.
tell us something all these years. I mean,
Who knows? But that's what
so
I'm
is
saying.
it really
So,
Chewbacca? I mean, that's what we're seeing in the picture.
Chupacabra? I don't know.
Chewbacca.
But that's what I'm saying. I think we should come back to this conversation in that regard.
Side effect.
I'm out.
Oh, I'm not. I think I've been drinking it slower. I
At the
mean,
moment, I literally have nothing.
I'm telling you, man. Ba-da-ba-ba.